so as you're starting to answer the questions on the question sheet, I'm going to come around. If you'll notice on the back of your question sheet that there is like a name card kind of thing, and it says name and class period. I'm going to bring you a smelly marker.
Ooh.
Like good smelling, like Mr. Sketch, you know, like what you have when you were in elementary school. Okay, so you grab a smelly marker and you're going to write your name, the name you prefer to be called, kind of big across here, and print, please, so that I can read it. And then also your last name at the bottom too. But the name you prefer to be called and your last name, and then also your class period. So this is 6th period, so you can just put a big 6 there or 6 in that part. And I'm going to bring you a marker to do that in so it's nice and bold. Okay, once you've got your name and your period written there, I'm going to come around and take your picture so you'll smile pretty. That's how I'm going to learn your names. But keep in mind, only I'm going to be looking at them. I'm not posting them anywhere. I'm just going to look at them and memorize your names. That's all, okay? So I'm going to bring the markers around for you guys to do that. So if you'll take a second to go ahead and write that on the back, and then you can go back to the questions, and I'll come around and I'm gonna come around and snap your picture. So when I come around, I just want you to hold up the name card thing with your name on it, just kind of like this, and you can smile or whatever you want to do. If you don't want to smile, have to, but smile, and I'm gonna take a picture of it. Again, I'm not posting these anywhere. I'm just for my own use. So while a few of you are finishing up, I do want to just go over this a little bit more. Every day that you come into class, there'll be an agenda board, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. But it'll tell you the materials you need. So like today, I asked you to just get out those materials, then everything else should be put back there. I don't want anything on the floor because we're going to get up and move around a lot and play games and sign with different people and all kinds of different things. So I don't want there always to be things on the floor that we could possibly trip on or you know, so there shouldn't be anything on the floor. So that's also why I have added these pouches on the back of your chair. So you have the pouch that has like a whiteboard in it right now, which I may end up taking out, but you can drop your phone, not your phone, your keys, pencil or pen, the clipboard you're using when you're not using it anymore, any of the materials that I asked you to have at your chair, but we're not using at the time, you can drop it down in there. The zipper pouch, however, is for your phone. Okay, so that is if you have a cell phone and you may leave it with your things, of course, that you put back in the corner back there. But if you want to keep it with you, but then you have to put it in the zipper pouch, okay, on the back. And just make sure it's face down so that the notifications aren't popping up to the people behind you. I know sometimes they'll light up and you'd be able to see it, or it just be, not that they'd be looking at it, but it'd just be distracting to see a phone, lighting up every once in a while. Just make sure it's face down. And I know that a lot of people, you turn on the notification light settings where it like flashes when you get a notification. You can make sure that's either turned off or put on do not disturb, or just turn the phone completely off if you're going to put it in the pouch. That way it's also not distracting the person in front of you. But you must be there. If it's not there and I see it out, then I have to take it and turn it in, and we don't want to have to do that. So just make sure you put it there. And I mean, I halfway prefer you to put it there because we will be using them in class. Most days I'll probably put here if we're going to be using them during class, but so that way if you decide you want to put them up, you can. But there are days that we will use them, so you're welcome to put them in the pouch. Just make sure it is put away and where you're not messing with it and checking it during class, okay? All right, and everything else should be back on the white shelves or the wooden desk back there, and not on the tables and not at your chair. If you didn't quite put everything back there today, I see a few things that are still out, it's okay. Just make sure tomorrow as you come in that you put everything back there except for the materials you need, and possibly your phone if you're wanting to keep it at your chair in the pencil pouch, okay? All right, so like I said, most days you're gonna come into an agenda board, and unless I'm doing a seating chart change, and I do always keep a seating chart, but I switch it up like every 3 or 4 weeks, because I don't like, ASL is a visual language. If you are sitting on this side of the room and always seeing me from this angle, it's not a terrible thing, but it's better if you can see me from different angles, okay, instead of always being in the same place. And honestly, the best angle is probably this area right there, just because of the way that my hand, when I'm finger spelling, it kind of goes that direction. You're straight ahead of me, and it goes that way, and you can see it better. The people over here might see kind of the side of my hand if I'm not careful. I am very intentional about trying to make sure that everybody can see. So I turn myself so you can see, but that's also why I change the seating charts around a lot, so that you're able to see from different angles. So anyway, if I'm doing a seating chart change, it'll be on the board like this, and you'll find your seat, and any instructions will be in the middle. Every other day, this is what you'll see when you come in. This is my agenda board. It actually has the date in ASL. This says August 7th, 2019. And then this says warm up. And so that's right here, always day, number the day, so day's number 1. So we're secretly counting down to summer from the first day, because we know there's 180 days, so we're counting it already. But we have day 1 here, and then it'll just tell you what materials you need and maybe any instructions you need for your warm-up. And then it's just kind of an agenda. So this little phrase here means what we're doing today. It doesn't mean that word for word, but that's what it means. It's like how we would sign the agenda, what we're doing today, okay? And so then it'll just kind of be an agenda of what we're doing today, okay? We will not get through all of this today because, it just takes us a little longer when we're getting to know each other. But most days, this is kind of the format we'll follow. Okay, and before I move on to the next thing, because warm-up is what you did with your questions, and most of the time our warm-ups are going to be very interactive, where you're, working with a partner to practice some things, or, but we'll talk about that more later. But since you are now done with your warm-up, if you would pass your sheet to your right, and just keep passing it until it gets over here. Okay. So, in this class, it may be quite different. Well, first, you probably already noticed some things that's very different about this class. One is, what's the most obvious thing that's different about the class? No desks. Actually, the Spanish classes have switched to no desks this year too, which is kind of exciting.
What is it?
I've always been no desks, but. Go ahead. No,
You said switch to no desk, and I thought it was like something, and you said something else.
I said I've always been no desk, so this is my 8th year teaching, and teaching ASL, and I've never had a desk, so. But it's very, very common in an ASL classroom not to have desks, because it's a visual language, and you have to be able to see each other to hear each other, right? So we oftentimes have it kind of set up in this format so that you are able to see each other, so that you can kind of hear each other and communicate. Another thing that's different about this class is that basically, I don't know if any of you have ever taken any other language classes, or if you are, if your first language is anything other than English, but for most of us, our first language is English, or whatever your first language was. How did you learn that language?
Just by hearing your parents do it.
Okay, by hearing your parents do it. Kind of being immersed in it, being around people.
Being around people who speak English all the time.
Right, and so you just start picking things up by hearing it all the time. So you did definitely learn from your parents, probably was one of the first language models that you had. How many of you had parents who used a textbook to teach you English?
No,
Okay, when you were a baby, they gave you a textbook and taught
there's
you.
little
I
books,
mean,
like the baby
I,
books that my mom uses those for my
Okay.
autistic little brother.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah, definitely. Reading books is definitely a wonderful way to learn language for sure. And in our class, we don't have books that are in ASL, but we do have stories and things that we'll watch that will help you learn the language, of course. Oh yes, definitely. But what I mean is like a textbook that has like all the rules of the language and like the vocabulary and that sort of thing.
oh no.
Yeah. Or gave you vocab lists and said, here, memorize these vocabulary. Or stood up and talked about a PowerPoint that went over what the grammar rules are for English. That's not how you learned the grammar originally. Now, when you got in school, after you had a pretty decent basis for English and you knew how to say, Mama, I need to go to the bathroom, Mama, I want milk, Mama, I don't feel good. You had a pretty good, foundation in English. Once you got in school, they started teaching you some of that stuff. But the way you originally learned your first language was just basically by hearing messages in that language that you understood. And that's how you acquire language, and that's how you're gonna acquire the language in this class. So I'm not going to be giving you vocabulary lists. I'm not going to be standing up and doing lessons over grammar, and I'm not going to be giving you a textbook. Occasionally, we might read an article in a textbook or something, but for the most part, the textbooks stay in my closet. I very rarely pull them out for anything. In this class, you will learn the language by seeing the language being used. Now, so there's things that I have to do to make that happen. For you to be able to acquire language, there's things I have to do, and there's some things that you have to do. So my responsibilities in the class are to just give you lots and lots of ASL. So lots and lots of input, as we call it. So lots and lots of language that you understand. That's the most important part, is that you understand it. If you don't understand it, then you're not going to acquire it. But I'm pretty good at it. I've been doing it for a while, and I know how to make it to the point where you understand. I draw pictures, I act a fool up here, acting things out, pointing at things. I'm not the best artist, but I'll draw quite a few pictures, and I'll do what I can to make sure that you understand, even down to writing the English on the board, or even saying the English out loud occasionally. So my job is to give you lots and lots of ASL for you to watch so that you can pick it up, that you can understand. So on the flip side of that is what your role in here is, what your responsibility is basically just to sit back, relax. Because it's hard to learn a new language if you're really just stressing about it. Okay? Sit back, relax.
And watch a language.
Watch a lot of language. The second part of it though is, you gotta tell me when I'm not being clear. So if you're not understanding what I'm saying, then you're not learning the language, right? So if you don't understand what I'm saying because I'm not being clear, please, you have got to tell me. So that's part of your role. Sit back and relax, but when you realize you're not understanding what I'm saying, and I'm gonna do my darndest to make sure that you're understanding what I'm saying, then when you're not understanding, let me know so I can make sure I say it a different way, or act it out more, draw it more, or write the English or say the English, okay? We're gonna do some of that today. You're gonna actually see, some of the language today. We're gonna do some little practice with it, and see how it works. But that's basically it. I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of language, and you guys are just gonna take it all in. And then eventually you'll start putting it back out too. When I get up here and start signing in ASL, I'll turn my voice off. I won't be speaking English except for occasionally I might check in with you guys. Do you know what I'm saying, or what did that mean? But for the most part, I am in voices off, signing only in ASL. When we transition to that part of the class, there's gotta be a way for you to tell me when you don't understand. So we need to come up with some sort of maybe nonverbal, like gesture or something that you can do that lets me know when I'm not being clear, so I can make it clearer for you.
You could just teach us the sign I don't understand.
Okay, I certainly can, and that would be using the language, which would be even better, right? And the sign is this? Don't understand.
There you go, there you go, there it is.
Some people though are a little bit more, would rather do something that's not so noticeable when they don't understand, something that's not quite so conspicuous, something that doesn't stand out. So is there anything a little, just not quite as like obvious that we could do? Like one class decided they wanted to tap their leg when they don't understand. I've seen another class who just kind of, not like, but like just kind of punch their fist when they don't understand. And then when the rest of the class sees somebody else doing that, if you'll join in and doing it, then that lets me know, that I need to do something, they're not, understanding it, or somebody doesn't understand it, and I'll rephrase. Any ideas?
I say we just copy the other class, the whole leg slapping thing.
The leg slap, okay? Everybody down for that? Anybody have any better suggestion?
I might not remember any of the suggestions you come up with, but okay.
Well, I mean, anything we do, you practice it, you'll get it. It's okay. You won't remember necessarily every time, but we'll go. All right, so if you see somebody slapping their leg, then if you'll join in and slap your leg also. Doesn't have to be a loud slap, just a little pat. I might not see that one person do it, so if you see them, then if you'll do it, then I can see several people doing it, and then I'll know. Okay? All right? And of course, as you learn the language, as you mentioned, that you could just sign, don't understand, as you learn the language, you can certainly sign to me exactly what you don't understand and what you need me to repeat and what, tell me to slow down and all of that. But for now, it's easier sometimes just to come up with a little cue, and so that's what we'll do for now. Okay? So just to kind of explain what these mean, these rules that I'll point to every once in a while. Watch with the intent to understand. So you can watch me signing all day long, and if you're not trying to understand what I'm saying, you won't acquire his language. So you have to watch with the intent to learn to understand what I'm saying. Okay, so just paying attention and actually trying to figure out what I'm saying. Support the flow of language. This one basically means try to limit how much English you use. Once we go into ASL, once we switch over into the target language, try to stay in the target language. If you absolutely feel like you need to say something in English, just ask me first. And this is the sign for English. So just ask me first, and then I may give you the permission to do so or whatever. But we try our best to stay in the target language as much as possible. Try not to have side conversations. When I ask you a question, I want everybody to answer back together. It helps me to know maybe some of you who didn't answer back. If you don't answer back, then it makes me think that maybe you just didn't understand. So that also helps me decide who understands and who doesn't if you're not answering the questions appropriately. So answering the questions. So just basically the flow of language when you're having a conversation is a back and forth. So if I'm just standing up here and being the only one that, is talking, it could be a kind of a boring conversation, right? And that's really what we're going to be doing a lot of, is just chatting about stuff, making up stories, and just having fun with the language. One person signs, everyone else watches. A lot, especially in the beginning, and the signing is just going to be me. But then eventually, as you guys start using some signs, of course, you would look at your classmates if they're signing so that you can hear it. We've talked about letting me know when I'm unclear. We've talked about making sure everything is put away during class, unless I tell you to have it out. And we talked a little bit about being brave and kind. Being brave because this is something new for most of us, and we're gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes. Every single day I will make mistakes, and every single day you may make mistakes, and that's just a part of learning. And if you think back on, if you look at children who are learning to speak English, they don't pronounce everything correctly. My little 3-year-old still pronounces things funny, like, I don't know, don't pronounce things perfectly. Give me an example, somebody.
Association.
Huh?
Phone instead of phone.
Yes, phone. My phone hurts. Yeah. What did you say? Nothing? Okay. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I didn't say nothing. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. What are you talking about? Okay. They don't pronounce everything perfectly, and you won't do everything perfectly either. So, when you make mistakes or when others make mistakes, be kind. And also be kind because we don't all have the same viewpoints. Okay? We don't all have the same perspective on life. So we're going to be kind to everyone and be respectful of each other as well. Alright? And be brave is just, it's kind of scary sometimes to learn a new language and have to use it, especially a language where people have to be looking at you when you're doing it. So it's going to be great. Okay? Alright. Any questions about what's my job in class besides teacher? What am I supposed to do to help you learn? I don't know. I'm sorry.
You know, lots and lots of language.
Yes, give lots and lots of language that you can't understand.
Like, how do we take tests and stuff? How do we
Okay, good question. Tests oftentimes are going to be done on very technology based. So on the iPads most of the time, or on a Chromebook if we need to, but usually it's iPads. The reason being is because the actual text, like if you were learning Spanish, you would have the text written on a piece of paper you could easily answer, whereas it's video based. So the only way we can document ASL is through a video, right? So in order for you to watch the language and be able to answer questions, you have to watch the video, and of course you have to do that on technology of some sort. And so we have an iPad card in here that we use for testing usually.
Does it matter if you use your right or left hand when you're signing?
It does actually, it does actually, you should use your dominant hand, so whatever hand you usually write with or do most things with, you should, use that hand most of the time, and we'll talk more about that in detail later on, but yes. Yes?
You said we weren't gonna be given specific vocabulary, so when we do take tests, what's it most likely gonna be over?
Over what we talk about in class. So, we will make lists of vocabulary. We create the list of vocabulary together. So things that come up in our conversations, things that come up in the stories that we create together, that kind of creates your vocab list. I don't dictate what we necessarily talk about. I don't dictate, okay, today we're talking about, this unit, we're talking about sports vocabulary, and for 2 or 3 weeks, we're only gonna talk about sports. That's kind of not real life. In real life, you don't only talk about sports for 3 weeks, you talk about other stuff. And so the way we do things in here mirrors more like natural communication, where you talk about all kind of things all the time. And we will document the things that we learn, but I'm not dictating it by giving a vocab list saying these are the ones you should learn, that kind of thing. Okay? All right, so let's dive in and see what class will be like, okay? So each day when we get to this part of the class period, and it'll start earlier on normal days, of course, we will transition into the target language. So when I get ready to move into ASL only, or mostly, I will count down from 5 to 0. So you guys will be, talking or whatever, or doing a brain break or whatever. And when I get ready to start class, start in the target language, then I will count down from 5 to 0. And by the time I get to 0, you should be no more talking, and I won't be paying attention to start class. Okay. So let's practice it. I want everybody to turn to somebody near you and tell them what you just learned about what my responsibilities as a teacher are and what your responsibilities are as a student in this class. Okay, turn and talk to them. Talk. Talk. to you and tell them what you just learned.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, she got it.
I got all this.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Five. Why do you ever realize you're saying things backwards in ASL? So you said
We'll talk about it in a minute. Okay. Did you understand what I was saying? The whole of the
I'm
message?
sure like everything.
Did you understand the whole of the message except for the one sign? Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Which one? Alright, now we are going to watch that video back. And you are going to orally translate it. So that means everybody's gonna translate it together out loud. Okay, so everybody's gonna translate it together out loud. Okay? Alright, I'm gonna put it in slow-mo, so it's not, going too fast for you. And I want you to all say it out loud together. Each sign, tell me what it means in English, okay? Alright, we ready? Everybody out loud together. If you're not all out loud together, I will start it over. Ready? Okay, so I only heard like one person, so what does this mean? And this answers your question. Somebody said it right though, I heard you.
How?
Have, or has, have or has, contains, okay, have, okay? So, alright, so again, say it out loud with me.
School week has.
Oh, keep going. Sorry. What's this? Days. Okay, good. Alright, next sentence.
Wednesday.
Good. Alright, so this sign can mean today, it can also mean just now, like currently, now. In most cases, when we're talking about the calendar, we're talking about today, okay? Alright, so today, Wednesday. Alright, tell me something you noticed about the language that's different than, say, English or something
It goes
grammatical.
backwards.
Yes,
it doesn't use like small words like is or stuff like
Yeah,
that.
a lot of the little small words are dropped, okay?
It's very.
They're there, the meaning of them are there, they're just not used and, you know, they're just not separate signs for them.
It's
Yes.
very, it's backwards, like everything's backwards.
Okay, so the order of the words or the order of the signs are different.
Like you think, you say like, how many days of the school week? You can start with school week. It's
Uh-huh.
weird.
Okay, so what'd you notice about that, the whole question thing? Like, why did I ask a question? We'll talk about that later. That's a feature of ASL, is asking a question and then answering it back myself.
It's like,
But yeah.
I'm not saying there's 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Cool. What you guys know in some ASL? Okay, so obviously that was a really quick, like, example of what we will do in class. We would talk for longer in ASL, and then we would do maybe a couple more sentences than that, 3 or 4 sentences, and do the same thing, and we would do that. That's kind of a normal kind of routine of the day. And then we usually end the class with like a little quiz or to check to make sure you're understanding. Sometimes it's just me asking questions and you answering out loud in English. Sometimes I have you write it down. Sometimes we'll play a little short game at the end to check and see that you understood everything. That's the, what we didn't quite get to. Cause I think that Belle's gonna catch us in about any second now. But, any other questions? So this is as far as we got, but, I do have your syllabus, but I'll give it to you tomorrow because I forgot to give it to my earlier periods because our class was so short for a period that I just decided I'd give them out tomorrow. So I'll have your syllabus for you tomorrow. You're welcome to go ahead and gather